Thank you for joining us on Indivisible this morning. I'm your host, John Stubbins. We're thrilled to have you with us, America. This is the show where we put God, faith, family, and country first, and we will always tell you the truth. We're streaming live today on Pure Social TV, Pilled.net, the Foxhole app, Spreely.com, Twitter, Facebook, YouTube, FreedomFirstNetwork.com. And by the way, just because we're trying to get off of these mainstream media, big tech giants, I highly recommend that you subscribe to us on Pure Social TV, on Pilled.net, the Foxhole app, and Spreely.com, so that we're not captive and hostage to big tech. Also, please subscribe to the show on all of these platforms and at Stubbins.org and on YouTube under Indivisible with John Stubbins. Make sure to click the notifications bell. As always, we always mention defendingtherepublic.org and fairandfreeelections.com, obviously. Make sure that you help us in any way that you can so that we can continue our investigations and run our show as we always do. Want to give a quick shout out as we've been on the road for a couple of weeks and haven't been able to get back to you. So I've been itching to tell everybody about this, but now I finally can. We are going to be going on the road with an A-list group out west. This is the first of 5 cities that we're going to, including Sacramento, Glendale, California, Phoenix, San Diego, and Las Vegas. General Flynn will be joining us once we get to Phoenix on July 15th. But we're really looking forward to this tour and bringing truth and what's happening on the ground up to the minute, whether it's at the border, whether it's big tech, whatever the subject matter is, Israel, China, whatever. We'll be bringing you the truth and bringing it to you there. But I want to just give a shout out because we're going to be doing fundraising for conservative candidates across the country. This one starts in Sacramento with my friend Chris Bish, who is running for Congress up in Sacramento, trying to defeat the Matsui family, Doris Matsui, who, as we've told you many, many times, is on the take with the Clinton Foundation with money from China. So on to today's show. Right off the bat, I've got a huge problem, and this is with Kamala Harris and Joe Biden. And this is going into the Memorial Day weekend, and I'm sure that you heard it, the way that they treated our fallen, our best people, our best generation, which was my grandfather's generation. They basically spit on them. And no, you're not going to get a pass, not on this show. So this is exactly why I asked the question, America, do you see what's happening right in front of your face, right in front of your eyes? Do you see it? Because freedom is not free. I say it all the time. Wake up, America. Are you going to allow Joe Biden and Kamala Harris and these Marxists to take away your freedom? Or are you finally going to wake up as a country? I know people are doing it, but we need more of you to wake up. Again, it's time for action. We've had enough of this. I don't care if it's our border, if it's critical race theory, or if it's spitting on our greatest generation like they did going to this weekend. Look, these guys laid it all on the line so that you can be free today. So it's time to push back together with no fear, your head held high, because your cause is just and it's righteous. And it's inexcusable the way that our fallen patriots were treated by Kamala Harris and Joe Biden. So let them know about it, people. Let them know. Say something. Speak up. How do you feel about them spitting on your grandfather, your father, your son, your husband? No, they're not going to get a pass here. Shame on them. They make me sick. Look, Governor Mike Huckabee, he commented on this going into the holiday weekend, and I agree with him. He said, it's okay to enjoy your long weekend, but for the love of God, remember those who spilled their blood and gave up their lives so we could live in the greatest country on God's green earth. Salute to our nation's veterans and their families. Memorial Day 2021, quote unquote. That was Governor Mike Huckabee. And I second that, Governor. And I want to welcome the man himself onto the show, Governor Mike Huckabee. Good morning, Governor.
Good morning, John. Great to be with you. And I was stunned, like you were, that the sitting vice president, who is surrounded by a staff of people on her communications department, was so tone deaf to the Memorial Day purpose that she failed to mention it in her tweet. Now, they're saying, well, later she came back and she added that. Well, that's too late. That's because there was such a backlash that she didn't have a choice. But her first instinct, and that of her staff, was to ignore that Memorial Day is about memorial.
Yes.
And the memorial is about remembering the people who have died to give us our freedom, who paid the ultimate price, who have given the last full measure. And she ignored that and just talked about a long weekend as if it's just a great time for baseball, beaches, and barbecues. But no, it's also a time for us to pause and reflect upon the greatest country on earth. But I guess when you think this is a terrible country and it's a racist country and it's an evil country that was built on both racism and all kinds of evil, such as taking over other people's lands, if you truly believe that, then you don't honor the people who preserved it. You feel like that they did a terrible thing. Anyway, let me just mention something. I was on the beaches of Normandy a few years ago, and I was standing with a veteran, and I asked him, because as I looked at these, what was now pristine beaches, I said, does it bother you that on these beaches people come and they bring their umbrellas and they have picnics and they enjoy a day in the sun? And he stopped me and he smiled and he said, no. He said, that's exactly why we came to these beaches on June 6, 1944, was so that people could enjoy it. He said, so we don't mind that people enjoy a holiday. We just don't want them to forget why they have it. It made a big impact upon me. And, every year my wife and I always try to go to a Memorial Day service. We did this past Monday. Congressman French Hill was the speaker. We were in North Little Rock, Arkansas at the Veterans Cemetery. And it was just a beautiful service, simple but powerful, and just a way to pause in the midst of this day and say, let's not forget why we're here.
Right. By the way, how is Janet feeling, by the way? I know she had the surgery last month. We've been praying for her recovery. How's she doing?
She's doing very well. It's been kind of a tough year. She had a broken ankle that resulted from slipping on a grandchild's toy a year ago, and then 2 subsequent surgeries from that. But I think she's on the mend and all is good. Thank you for asking.
Oh, my pleasure. Let her know that we send our love. And, it's funny because aside from meeting you on your show, there's a shot of us together at your studio, which was a great night, just a fantastic night. And I was able to give you a copy of the first hour for men that night. And then subsequently, later on, you got to have my partner Mark Cook on the show. There's a good shot of you there with the first hour for men, and there's a shot of you and Mark with Mrs. Jones on the show as well. And it's fantastic because prior to that, I had met you and Janet in Columbus, Ohio, at the Hyatt Regency when you were running for president. And that was a great day for me. I got to come up and meet you and Janet, shake your hand. That was a great introduction, and that was a long time ago. But I was just thrilled to be able to kind of get to know you and bring that along to where we are now, sitting here today.
Well, I want to say thanks. I'm so glad you got to come to Nashville, where we do our television show on TBN every week. As you can see, it's quite an extraordinary theater where we do it. I don't know of any facility that does a talk show on the West or East Coast or anywhere in between that has a facility like ours. And quite frankly, John, I think the production that our team does is comparable to anything on any network at any time. I challenge people to find a show. Now, the host, maybe he's not so hot, but the production quality of the show is second to none.
No, it's a great show. It's a great show. And by the way, I was thrilled to be there. That was my first time there. And for us to come back with the first hour, and I'm hoping to come back again because we've got movies that we're working on. And just, I'm also producing Carter Page's documentary. And by the way, I forgot to mention this in the opening. I just signed a deal with Salem Media. So not only are we going to be distributing Carter Page's documentary, but also my show is going to be going nationwide. So we won't hopefully have the problems with Chrome and Firefox going into the future. But I want to talk about a couple serious things that are on my list here to talk about today, because look, the disrespect that I talk about on going into Memorial Day, that's bad enough. But then let's turn our attention to the world stage and what's going on right now in Israel, what's going on in the Middle East with Hamas, with Iran. It's very disturbing to me. And when I see people come out and make comments from the Democratic Party about, how they support Hamas, I'm sorry, but that's a deal breaker for me. And we can't talk after you say that. And I just wanted to get your thoughts on that, Governor.
Johnny, it ought to be a deal maker for everybody. I mean, there's no excuse to say they support the Hamas approach, which is to target innocent civilians, little babies and children and moms in neighborhoods and schools and synagogues, and try to kill them. It's not that they might accidentally kill them in collateral damage because they're going after a military target. They intentionally target civilians. That's their MO. People need to realize that the State Department, every organization in the world recognizes Hamas not as a government, as a terrorist organization. And so when AOC, our Rashida Tlaib, and these other far left-wing, uninformed people get out there and act like they're supporting the terrorist organization, they might as well stand up and say, we love ISIS. They're terrific. Right. Let's go for Al-Qaeda. Boy, what they did on 9/11 was a wonderful gift to the world. That's how nutty this stuff is. These are not normal people, Hamas. And
John, I tell people, I don't think they realize that Hamas is over there on the other side. They've got so many underground tunnels that they've dug. They're hiding behind children in these schools. So, they'll fire a rocket from a school location, and there's kids there. And then when Israel responds, then they try to claim to the world, look, see, Israel's bad. They're firing back on children. No, it's Hamas that's doing this intentionally, right? To frame Israel in this regard. I mean, it's plain as day. We know the Palestinian Authority, what they're doing over there. We know that Iran's involvement. And by the way, Joe Biden, I cannot believe that he's going to try and enter back into this Iran deal. This guy is insane. What's he thinking?
Well, John, the fact is he's not thinking. That's the problem. Where did Hamas get all the money to build those rockets? They came directly from Iran. And where did Iran get its money? It came from us because we lifted the sanctions and we sent pallets of cash. Iran didn't build schools. They didn't build hospitals and sewer systems and water systems for their people or for the people of Gaza. They built rockets and bombs. And that's why the poverty rate in Gaza is so incredibly intense, because Hamas has no intention of improving the lives of its people. And by the way, neither does the Palestinian Authority. Mahmoud Abbas lives like a sultan. He lives beyond anything imaginable for most people. But the poverty level among the people in the Palestinian Authority, as well as in Gaza, Gaza is being run by Hamas, the PA being run by Abbas. Abbas has no control over Hamas. But Hamas is a total proxy of Iran. And the Palestinian Authority is a corrupt organization that refuses to have elections for 16 years, even though by international law they're supposed to. I've been in and out of that territory, John, since 1973. I've probably made over 100 trips to Israel. So this is not something I'm unfamiliar with, and it's not something I've read articles about. I've seen with my own eyes for the past 48 years the dramatic evolution of Israel as a modern country. And I've also seen how and I use the term so-called Palestinians, because there is no such thing as a Palestinian nation or a Palestinian people. It's a geographical designation.
Right.
And it meant something in terms of the area. And when people argue, well, what about the Palestinian kingdom? I say, name the first king. Tell me who was the first president. Tell me where the first capital was and when it was established and by whom. If people doubt me, I tell them, go back and watch the movie from 1961 called Exodus with Paul Newman.
That's a good one.
Because in that film, as recently as 1961, when people were talking about Jews, they referred to them as Palestinians. The Israel-based Jewish people were also called Palestinians because they lived in the land of Palestine, which, by the way, came from Philistine. It was a term the Romans gave to them, a term of derision, by the way,
right,
in the first century. So all of this stuff is made up. And if Yasser Arafat had never just co-opted the name Palestinian and made up out of thin air an aggrieved people, this wouldn't be going on. And I just don't think most people understand how phony a lot of the atrocities are that are named against the Israelis, when in fact I have seen what they do to try to protect people, and it is stunning, and they never get credit for it.
Yeah, and how many times have you been over there, Governor? This is something that you do on a normal basis. We know this.
Probably over 100 times. I've lost count. I mean, I've been going for 48 years. Some years I go, 4, 5, 6 times. So it just depends. And I've taken thousands of people there, been organizing groups for travel there since 1981. Now, the last
God bless you.
year and a half, I haven't been able to go because of COVID. But I had 6 trips that I was supposed to go, all of which had to be canceled because of the lockdowns.
Sure. Yeah, no. And by the way, God bless you for the work that you do over there, because it's necessary and people need to see for themselves. And without people like you directing it and them, because they trust you, and without people like you in charge and directing that, a lot of people might be hesitant. So, we applaud you for all of your work that you do, Governor. You're amazing. Speaking of that, before I forget, I wanted to talk a little bit about your daughter, Sarah, her upcoming run for governor of Arkansas, which, by the way, a lot of people know me, even though I live in Ohio and I've lived here most of my life, except for the time I served in the military and also when I was in school. I was born in Little Rock, Arkansas, and I've got family down there spread through the South and in Little Rock and different places like Cabot and Hot Springs and what have you. But this is amazing. I'm really excited about Sarah running down there. We need new blood down there because I'm not sure that Asia is the guy down there,
Well, I'm very happy to know you've got relatives in Arkansas, and I hope you tell them to vote for Sarah. But,
absolutely. Absolutely. They're all voting for Sarah. We know the history down there. In fact, I've got an aunt and an uncle that even when I was growing up, they kept me informed on the dirty deeds of the Clinton family down there and all the things that they were involved with. So I've been hit to the Clintons probably as long as you have, just following them since I was a young kid, knowing, what they would tell me down there, and they lived close to the Clintons. Yeah. So they were in on it,
Well, Sarah's going to, I think, be a great governor. Of course, she has to be elected first, but she's working incredibly hard. She doesn't take anything for granted. Her poll numbers are amazing. Her fundraising is just unprecedented. No one's ever raised funds like that. But let's be fair. She's going to have to, because nationally, the Democrats have already targeted her.
Oh,
They're
yeah.
going to do everything they can to try to destroy her, largely because of her strong conservative pro-life views, but also because she was so close and is, even to this day, very close to President Trump. And they hate him. So anyone who was ever a part of his administration, they hate him too. So Sarah knows to sleep with one eye open and always, keep somebody looking behind her to see who's coming up. But having said all that, she is working not just to be elected, but to serve and to govern and to bring great ideas to the state of Arkansas. And I think she will be an extraordinary governor when she's elected.
I do too. And I back her 100%. In fact, one of the things that I would say is sometime maybe, even at the end of the summer or early fall, whatever, I would love to have both of you on the show. I'd love to give anything I can to help boost her campaign, get the word out down there. I think it'd be great to have you both on together, and look forward to. By the way, in reference to Sarah, going into the Memorial Day weekend, I've got to show this picture because this picture was so amazing. And when I saw it, the first thing I thought of was, think if every mother in America taught their sons and daughters to respect our military, our veterans, our law enforcement, our first responders. In this picture, Sarah teaches her son, your grandson, why Memorial Day matters and what it truly means. It's a perfect photo. And when I saw it, I was just like, okay, I'm bringing that photo on the show because it says so many. That photo, it says 100 things, but the main thing that it shows me is a mother that cares enough to take the time to teach her child that it matters. And if we had more parents doing that instead of complaining about everything, our country would be in a lot better spot.
Well, that particular moment came when she took her middle child, her second born, who was named Huck. His full name is William Huckabee Sanders, and they call him Huck, which I kind of like.
I love it.
But she took him with her to Arlington National Cemetery when she accompanied the president a couple of years ago for the Memorial Day service. And to back up just a little bit, and I talked about it on my show this past Memorial Day weekend, I would urge people to go to Huckabee.tv, see the monologue that I did. It has a lot of the pictures from that visit that he made. But when Huck was not quite 3.5 years old, Janet, my wife, took him on a Memorial Day service. I was traveling that particular day, and down at a veterans cemetery near where we lived in Florida at the time. And when they got there, he noticed all these people wearing uniforms. And so he asked his grandmother, what are those uniforms? What do they mean? And, this is a kid who's 3.5, and he was big into superheroes, Batman, Spider-Man, Superman.
What kid isn't?
Yeah. And so my wife said, Huck, you see all these people? They're the real superheroes.
Right.
They're not make-believe. These are real superheroes. His
the
eyes
real
got
deal.
big. Absolutely. And so he went over and she introduced him to several of the superheroes. And he was so impressed. And now every time, and this has been since that day, every time he sees someone in the military, he'll say to his mom or his dad or to his grandmother or me, hey, there's a superhero right there. I think that's how we need to help kids to grow up understanding that the people who wear capes and tights, that's great fiction. But the real superheroes, the people who truly do put themselves between danger and us, are those folks in the military uniforms of the USA.
That's right. That's right. You're right. And Governor, look, we just applaud you for all the work that you do. Not only, you've done so many things. You are a real worker. You're a real testament to an American who goes out there and gets it done. And that embodies everything that this show stands for, about Americans who are doing amazing things, who have done it over the course of a career, of a lifetime. all the things you've done, whether it be governor, whether it's your work in church, whether it's over in Israel, whether it's your show, it doesn't matter. You reach so many people, and that people trust you, they love you. That it means so much to have Americans like you that are doing the work, not talking, but actually doing. My friend Brian used to say, John, there are talkers and there's doers. Which one are you? And when I was younger, that was a good question to challenge me with, because, it's easy to talk. It's a lot harder to do. And you're a doer, and you're an amazing American. And I hope that you'll come back and maybe persuade Sarah to come on with you next time.
I look forward to it. John, thank you so much for having me today. It's been my pleasure.
It's been my pleasure. Thank you so much, Governor. God bless you.
Thank you.
Have a great afternoon. That was Governor Huckabee. We're thrilled, obviously, to have him on the show. He's just an amazing patriot, and we've talked about all the things that he's involved with, and all the things that matter to people like you. So, look, as we go through time, people need to understand why this matters, why we bring on the people that we do. It's not just because we draw, a name out of a hat. It's really because these are people that are doing the work. These are people that are doing amazing things, that are making contributions. I don't care if it's, Dan Ponton at Roosters. I don't care if it's all the way up to a Mike Huckabee or a Colonel Shaffer or a General Flynn, or it doesn't matter who it is or on what level. If you're contributing to America and you're part of that, that's what matters. It's that experience, and bringing that experience to the people and making a difference. And I don't know how else to say it other than that, but just remember those people and why they are who they are, why we bring them on the show, because it matters that much. Real quick, we're going to go to a commercial, and we'll be right back with Colonel Tony Shaffer. Big news, America. Mike is bringing back the pillow offer for just $29.98. They're the softest pillows. They don't go flat. Wash them and dry them as many times as you like, and they still keep their shape. And they're made in America. Mike is offering his premium My Pillows at his lowest price ever. Queen size for $29.98, regularly $69.98. That's a $40 savings. And king size, only $5 more. Go to mypillow.com and enter the promo code Indivisible for my show, or call 1-800-716-4639 and give them the code Indivisible for my show, and you're going to get huge savings. Welcome back. I want to bring on to the show now Colonel Tony Shaffer. How you doing this morning, Colonel?
I'm doing well, John. How are you?
Good. I'm sorry you missed Governor Huckabee. We had him on first this morning, a very early morning to get after it, but here we are, nevertheless.
Yeah.
Everybody, I just want to welcome Colonel Shaffer to the show. He is the president of the London Center for Policy Research, and also the author of Operation Dark Heart, which I always want to look at because it's a fantastic book. And if you have not read it, I highly encourage that you do. Get a copy of it. I think you'll get a perspective that maybe you would not otherwise as a civilian. But a fantastic book. How you been doing?
Good. Busy as you. A lot of things going on right now. I just was doing some local radio with my friend Larry O'Connor. He does the local show, and then we were doing some stuff on the woke military, the woke. According to the president, white supremacy is the biggest threat, so it must be true. I'm looking for those people in white sheets around my neighborhood. And I went around this morning. I didn't see any.
Yeah, I didn't see any either. I was up at the crack of dawn, and I didn't see any myself. But yet, supposedly, they're floating around every corner, like gumball machines, right? They're everywhere. It's interesting. I was talking with Governor Huckabee about what's going on over in Israel and, Hamas and Iran and their influence on, why Israel's having to constantly use the Iron Dome over there. I thought I might get your take on that briefly before we moved on. I mean, I'm sure that you're obviously watching the world scene. I know that's part of what you do, so I thought I'd ask you.
It's because we keep paying for it. I mean, it's that simple.
That's what the governor said.
Yeah, it's like, one of the great things Reagan said, that which you essentially pay for, whatever you essentially do things to fund, you're going to get more of. If you support amnesty, you give all these people, it's like you're going to get more illegal aliens.
That's right.
So so the Trump administration had the right policy. Palestinian Authority, no money. You've got to learn how to live with your neighbors, quit trying to kill them, big requirement.
That's right.
And the moment you then basically disenfranchise, that organization, if you take it and push it away from the money, it stops doing bad things.
Yeah.
The moment you start giving them money, and remember, John, I don't know how people can't see the timing here. Tony Blinken, Secretary of State, reopens all the funding to the Palestinian Authority. Not saying that it went to Hamas, but maybe. And then after you introduce, I think it was $235 million, John, that'll buy you a lot of hate. It did. And so what happened is that money gets into the system, and next thing you know, you've got Iranian-made missiles shooting into Israel.
That's right.
Is it a coincidence? I don't think so.
Nope, it's not a coincidence. And is it a coincidence that that we constantly are finding these tunnels underground? No. Right. Is it a coincidence that you hear about all of these schools of these children that are getting? Look, they're hiding, and I keep saying this, reiterating this. Hamas hides behind children.
They do.
They use them as shields. It's not going to stop. That's how evil they are.
Right.
And the regime in Iran, the Ayatollahs, what they're doing, they are evil. That theocracy is evil. And people need to wake up to that and just accept it. That's the way it is. And it's not going to change.
So, and it's interesting you mention that, John, because I think one of the things that we recognize about the whole conflict, and I don't get the left, because one of the things Hamas pushes, as does the Palestinian Authority, is conservative Islam. Now, conservative Islam is not our kind of conservative. Conservative Islam is where women are treated like chattel, and you can't drive, you can't do all these other things. So I find it amazing that the very thing you're talking about, the evil nature of Iran, of the Shia Islamic faith, how they make women do things and say things. They're treated like, and homosexuals. Last time I checked, am I wrong on this, John? That the progressives are supposed to be like for homosexuals and LGBTQ, XYZ. They would be the first ones killed, murdered by these conservative Islamists.
Yeah, the irony is incredible.
Yeah,
they vote for their own death.
Yeah, I don't get it.
Yeah, they vote for their own death, and then you see them come out and they back Hamas.
Yeah,
these people are crazy.
I don't get it. I don't know why you support an organization which actually would go about targeting and murdering your constituents, but they do.
It's crazy. Thanks for commenting on that. I wanted to get your take on it. I mean, we have so many other issues, obviously, but look, that issue is not going away. It looks like it's intensifying. Even where this goes, who knows? Especially with Biden in the White House. Look, I want to move on to talk about Fauci, because what's going on over in China right now, and I guess we'll dive more into China in a minute. But look, Fauci right now is being exposed as the liar that he is, and you're seeing it come out, little trickles. What do you think about Fauci? I mean, how does this guy walk around he acts like he's holier than thou.
Yeah.
And here we are.
John, I don't see white privilege in this country. I see progressive privilege. I see the left. If you're a lefty, if you're on the left side of the spectrum, progressives, not classic liberal. I mean, I think you and I might agree that classic liberals see things a lot like us. They want free speech. They want accountability. They don't believe in war. They don't believe in trying to manipulate the political adversary to the point of where you lose speech. They're against that. But if you're a progressive, if you're a Stalinist, I guess you fit right in. And I think Fauci comes from the Stalinist school of progressivism. Yeah. Because if you look back at everything he said and recommended, it was all about ignoring constitutional protections of freedom. And I remember some of the hearings where I think it was Rand Paul even confronted them on, aren't you concerned about freedoms? Well, no, I don't. That's not, I don't care about freedom. I don't care about the Constitution. And he's a public servant. He took the oath of office, same as I did as an intelligence officer. But apparently my version of the oath meant something. I don't know how these guys go into office. And John, he is the highest paid public servant in the nation.
I know. Yeah. You know what it reminds me of? I tell you what it reminds me of. Here's a good analogy.
Yeah.
You get in the car and you drive around, like here in Ohio, you can drive on the freeway everywhere, downtown, wherever. Look, I always wonder how probably 70% of the drivers get a license. Okay. I always wonder, is the BMV just handing out licenses, or do people actually have to know something about the laws of driving on the road? And nowadays with them defunding police, people are just breaking the law left and right, driving their car. This reminds me of what you're talking about. You took an oath. He took an oath. Your oath is different than his oath. How is that possible?
Well, it's possible because it goes back to my point of liberal privilege, of progressive privilege. What happens is that these people get inside their echo chamber, and all their bad behavior is accepted at face value, and it's reinforced by the mob. And so when we got into this, as you recall, a lot of us, I was one that's like, I've got a degree in environmental studies. I'm not a scientist, but I've played one in college. And the things that I learned is that science is, you can measure these things. It's like, it's repeatable.
Right.
Science is based on being able to do experiments which are repeatable. You can repeat it and get a result.
Yes.
And measure it. We all knew that the mask thing wouldn't work.
Right.
Except for a handful of masks, N95. My son's a fireman and medic. It's like, Dad, the mask thing, we have to wear them in hospitals. We have to wear them on calls. But otherwise, healthy people wearing masks doesn't do anything for you. Especially, you've probably seen it. The bandanas, you can throw the bandanas. It's like an open season robbing 7-Elevens or something, for goodness sake.
Yeah, and my next guest, I'm going to have Patrick Howley on. We're going to dive into a little bit more of that in depth. Yeah. Real quick, I wanted to ask you a couple other things, Tony. Sure. In relation to our military situation right now, with what we see going on in the Middle East, obviously the buildup of China, Russia's unpredictable right now. They seem to be, really controlling the hand when it comes to Biden. He's out of his depth with Putin.
Right.
Where do you think we're sitting with military readiness at the moment? Because it doesn't inspire a lot of confidence with me.
No, readiness is a problem. Let's break that down a little bit, John. So regarding strategic threat, you hit a couple of them. China and Russia. We also have Iran, which you mentioned already. And those are and North Korea. I think those are the ones we have to really pay close attention to. North Korea is going to be North Korea. And I think Un is going to do what he can to get something out of this administration. I don't know when, but he will. He'll come around. Russia is, look, Putin's a thug, but he knows what he's doing. What he's trying to do is reinsinuate the old Soviet
KGB,
the old empire. That's what he's trying to do. We've known this for decades. I'm sorry, President Obama. The foreign policy from the '80s is again here today. This whole, the '80s wants this foreign policy. Yes, the '80s probably does, because it's the same thing again. It's
right
all over again.
Right. Yeah.
And
and by the way, for Biden Trump achieved it. We achieved energy independence.
Right.
And for him to strip that away, that is a national security issue.
At that point, John, one of the concerns we had during the Trump years, and Trump did act on it, was the fact that Russia was trying to essentially establish, through Gazprom and other commercial outlets pretty much run by the Russians, essentially full access to give Europe, especially Germany, gas, energy. And the idea is, if you are giving Germany 90% of its energy, if Germany does something you don't like, you turn it off.
Yeah.
And so we said, hey, we don't think that's a good idea. We'll come to your aid. We'll give you some, liquid LPG, that sort of thing. And that's where we were going. But obviously, Biden caved already. He's turning off the ANWR access for our folks to explore and pull gas out.
He's an idiot.
Well, I look, I got to tell you, I think he's evil. I think this is all planned. I think he personally may not understand what he's doing, but behind the scenes, whoever's pushing this, it's all very well planned.
Oh, no doubt about it. No doubt about it. I agree with you.
Yeah.
One other quick point I wanted to ask you about. This is very important. I was watching Life, Liberty, and Levin, and David Padrush, who got me started with this show.
Yeah, I know Dave.
He's Dave
and I worked years ago at when he was a Travel Channel.
Well, I wouldn't be doing this show if it wasn't for David Padrush. He's the one that talked me into it. But I was watching, and I was gone for a couple weeks on the road, obviously down with you in Dallas, and I was all over the country. But this particularly, I recorded this while I was gone. He had Peter Pry on, who wrote the EMP.
I know Peter.
I'd love to meet Peter. The EMP Manhattan Project, discussing, surviving an EMP attack to our grid, our electrical grid. And look, we're not investing, like you said, we're not investing in protecting the grid. It is vulnerable. There's no money earmarked for it. And Peter's, been telling them for years. So, I wonder what we're going to do on that, because it's obvious we're being targeted.
Well, look, John, I think people have to recognize the two recent events which wake them up, which first was the Colonial Pipeline hack, whatever you want to call it. That was one pipeline shut down for less than a week.
Right.
It caused regional problems that lasted weeks. And then we have the current hacking of the beef industry. Apparently, we are going to have a very high price meat, because it's going to take some time to trickle down to the retail level, but at the wholesale level, there's problems. So just imagine, I try to get people to wrap their mind around this. What if an entire region, like the entire Eastern Seaboard, didn't have power for a month?
That's right.
Now, without power, John, people don't recognize, that means digitization doesn't work. That means what we're doing right now does not work.
Yeah, no ice, no water. Nothing.
And so this is where Peter and I've testified in front of the FERC and NERC and on all this on behalf of Peter as a threat expert. And the bottom line is, our adversaries understand this vulnerability. The people we listed earlier, Russia, China, North Korea, Iran, all understand that man-made EMP, electromagnetic pulse, in a high altitude burst, this is not something that's science fiction. Although the kids get it because they have it in all their games.
Yeah.
Starfish Prime, a high altitude burst in 1962, I believe it was mid-year. Starfish Prime was a high altitude hydrogen burst over the Pacific, which took out the Hawaiian power grid.
Yeah.
And back in those days, it wasn't digitized.
Right.
So people have to understand that if that sort of thing was planned and did happen, you could see parts of the country down hard for weeks, if not months.
Absolutely.
And
absolutely.
I mean, a little secret: the Army ain't coming.
Right.
I've talked to the Army; they're going to be busy taking care of themselves.
That's right.
And I've talked to people. Oh yeah, well, no. Nobody's coming for you because the Army has switched over to using mostly commercial power, so they don't have any independent capability that's sufficient to allow them to maintain their presence and help you. So what Peter has been talking about is trying to get people's attention. I met with Ambassador Hank Cooper with Mark Meadows on this just recently. Hank and I went in and talked to Mark about the fact that we need to be looking at regional solutions because the federal government's never going to fix this.
No.
So we've been pushing the idea of doing regional, essentially interlocking regional state level relationships so states at least can figure out how to take care of themselves should this happen. And then, of course, there's CME, the coronal mass ejection from the sun. The sun itself is a massive EMP emitter.
Sure.
The Carrington event in the I think it was 1859, which took out telegraph lines. I mean, back in those days, you didn't even have a power grid.
Right.
So I'm just telling you, and your audience needs to understand this. This could happen. This is not science fiction. This is something.
This is not a game.
Yeah. So
this is not a game. Look, these kids think it's a game. Wait till you can't get any water. We'll see how much of a game it is.
Yeah. No, I'm with you.
Yeah, I'd love to talk to Peter about this and help him get the word out. And I was very intrigued by his interview with Mark. It was fantastic. I was captivated. Real quick, I just wanted to mention Tony is going to be going on the road with us here to Sacramento. Again, as I mentioned at the top of the show, we're really excited about kicking off this West Coast tour, and it starts July 1st in Sacramento. Make sure that you get your tickets at bishforcongress.org. bishforcongress.org. Tony, thanks for coming on the show, brother. Good to see you.
Yeah, good to see you too. Hey, John, thanks for having me. And boy, we didn't even crack the surface in most of this stuff. We have to do this more often. So
yeah, well, we definitely will. We've my problem is there's only one of me, and when I'm on the road, it makes it tough.
I know, I understand that. I get that. So
it makes it tough, but we will get there. We're gonna start taking it on the road. God bless you, Tony.
Thank you. Take care.
So we're going to go to a quick commercial, and when we come back, we're going to have Patrick Howley, who I'm really excited to talk to. We'll be right back. By now, you've all heard me talk about Mike and his great products. Well, guess what? Mike's now introduced his MyPillow My Slippers, which are fantastic. Great on my feet, soft as can be. I love them. Mike's taken over 2 years to develop these slippers. He's designed them to wear indoor or outdoor all day, all night long. Made with MyPillow foam and impact gel to help prevent fatigue. Made with quality leather suede. For a limited time, Mike is offering 40% off his new My Slippers. The My Slippers are so comfortable, you're going to want to get them for the whole family. Go to mypillow.com and click on the radio listener square and use promo code Indivisible. You'll also get deep discounts on all MyPillow products, including the Giza Dream bed sheets, the MyPillow mattress topper, and MyPillow towel sets. Or call 1-800-716-4639 and enter Indivisible as your promo code. I want to welcome onto the show Patrick Howley. Patrick, how you doing, brother?
I'm not too bad, John. Good to see you.
Yeah, sorry about the delay today. We had a little bit of a technical issue with Governor Huckabee. He was trying to get it on Firefox. He couldn't get signed in. He couldn't get a new version of Chrome downloaded. So he ended up having to go to his phone, unfortunately. But we got him on, and we're just behind a few minutes. But welcome to the show, brother.
You know, it's good to be here. I'm suspended from Twitter yet again. I was suspended for a week, and then they let me back on for a few hours. And then I talked about Fauci again, so they suspended me for another week. So, my message to Jack Dorsey is this. Look, Jack, you are doing your ice baths. Okay, you've got your dreads or your rasta, your nose ring, whatever it is you're doing. You're going to Burning Man with the other Silicon Valley CEOs who go to Burning Man, and whatever it is, I'm into it. Go for it. But you are suppressing an artist, man. You are suppressing a true artist of tweeting. Okay, and
yeah, and Patrick's a winner, by the way, people. Look, this guy writes for National File. He's a personal friend of mine and a great journalist. And by suppressing him, all you're doing is making me angry. And look, you can try to suppress him on Twitter, but guess what? He's still on my show, and it's still going to Twitter. So take that.
Yeah.
By the way, Patrick, we'll talk about Fauci here in a minute. I don't know if you caught the tail end of my discussion with Colonel Shaffer about the power grid. We were talking about the EMP Manhattan Project by Peter Pry. Do you want to chime in on that at all?
Well, I'm not an expert on that, but I know that it is a big problem, and I know that Trump focused on it. I know that Congress dropped the ball and did not even reauthorize our protection against an EMP attack at one point. And so, if they do shut down the electric grid here in the United States, they could cause mass chaos. And I think that's going to tie into what you see with food shortages. We're already seeing gas shortages. We recently saw big grid problems in Texas, and the narrative was, Texas has to use the federal grid. Well, if the federal grid gets compromised by the Chi-Coms, then we're in big trouble.
Yeah, no doubt about it. And then also, I was talking to Governor Huckabee earlier about what's going on over in Israel with Hamas and Iran, and their involvement in shooting those rockets, and the Iron Dome having to be deployed. And it just makes us sick, because we know, and for the Democrats to come out and publicly say that they support Hamas, it just blows the mind when you know what they're doing over there. It really blows your mind. I wanted to see if you wanted to comment on that before we get into Fauci.
Well, John, look, I come to this from a good faith perspective of America first. And I really don't believe that the United States should be funding either side of an end times war in the Middle East, especially when you have alleged atrocities being committed on both sides. I think that the American tax dollars should be spent here in America when we have Flint, Michigan, kids can't get drinking water. We have poverty. We have people out of work. We have people hurting. And so, to consistently send billions of dollars to a foreign country, I think is something we should probably evaluate.
Yeah, no, I mean, there's definitely an argument to that side to be made. I'm just thinking to myself, and somebody gave the example the other day, if you were sitting in Michigan right now, or Illinois, or California, or Ohio, and somebody started firing rockets into your backyard, what would you do? And I think that's kind of the position here. But let's move on to Dr. Fauci, because as you know, over the last week, Fauci has been exposed as a huge, huge liar. And I'm going to get to a couple points here. Let me grab my glasses real quick, because I made some notes on this, and I've talked about this before on the show. We've gotten into this with Gordon Chang as well. Look, Fauci's a criminal as far as I'm concerned. He's a criminal. He needs to be arrested. He lied about needing a mask once vaccinated. He lied about gain-of-function research. He lied about it not being man-made. His relationship with Bill Gates raises a ton of questions, starting with who's profiting from this? Gates and Fauci? Those are just a couple things. And then Peter Daszak, he's a criminal too, using taxpayer funds for this gain-of-function research. Like I said, we reported on this before with Gordon Chang several times, and the ties to the CCP. Fauci lied about the immunity as well. I think him and Gates privately, and Daszak had a deal. They thought they were going to get wealthy off of this. And frankly, I don't believe one thing Fauci has to say. I know you want to chime in on this.
Well, look, The fact is that Fauci is a stooge of Bill Gates. Bill Gates is a benefactor. Fauci has been very financially successful as a result of Bill Gates's wallet, as has the entire medical industry in the United States of America, all of these NGOs all over the world, and not to mention the entire vaccine industry. Bill Gates had an objective to mass vaccinate people. The National Institutes of Health actually has a financial stake in an intellectual property stake in the Moderna vaccine, which they admitted. Um, and not to mention that, but also a number of NIH experts who were
Right.
evaluating the treatment of how to treat this thing had financial relationships with Gilead, which was the more expensive, less effective drug maker. Of course, they were
Yes.
trying to shut down hydroxychloroquine, which was what President Trump was trying to use to cheaply treat people because he didn't care about making money. He wanted to just get rid of this virus.
Exactly.
So this entire thing has been a big equity grab. If you look at the massive amount of wealth that Jeff Bezos has consolidated since this began, basically shutting down the service sector, putting all the waiters, all the busboys out of work, all the bartenders,
Yeah.
and Bezos, consolidating his wealth using taxpayer-funded labor from the Postal Service. When you look at the amount of wealth that Bill Gates has added, when you look at the amount of wealth that Elon Musk has added since this pandemic, these people are making out like a bandit. And in order to do that, they have to try to shut down small business in this country. In addition, they believe that the masks can be social control, so that kids who are growing up nowadays are propagandized into thinking that wearing a face mask over your nose and mouth, cutting off oxygen, is somehow what you have to do. And it's submission. And we've never seen anything like this before to the extent that they're doing it. And, if people don't really wake up right now and things go in the opposite direction, then we're going to be in trouble. But I'm very, very happy about what we've seen in the last 24 hours with Dr. Anthony Fauci being publicly disgraced.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And believe me, we're just getting started. And I know that, Patrick, I know that you obviously feel that way too, because I know you're going to come out with more. And I don't care what Twitter says. If they don't like it, that's just tough. I don't care. We're going to stick it to Jack, right? Real quick, want to talk about the border for a second. My friend Laura Logan's been covering it. She was down there again for the last week. She was up in the chopper. She was down on the ground at the border. I know that Biden and Harris don't want to deal with it. I know they're trying to hide it every way they can, but people keep coming across, and that hasn't stopped.
They are determined to use taxpayer money to import as many people into this country as possible. These people are going to become first-class citizens in this country, and it's all going to be on your dime. And not to mention that, but you have a massive problem with child sex trafficking coming over the border. This is modern-day slavery. Slavery did not end in the United States of America. It continues to this day because these kids are slaves, and their lives are horrible. If you look at what happens to a child sex slave who lives in the underground underbelly, the criminal element, after they come over the border, it's a very, very horrible life. A lot of these kids end up dead. And so the human trafficking is really, I think, the lifeblood of the criminal economy in this country, in addition to, of course, the heroin and all the drugs that they're pumping in. President Donald Trump tried to do something about this. The Republicans fought him every step of the way, even after we got an emergency declaration, an emergency authorization for the wall, Pentagon funding, and
they
executive
blocked him
order.
in court.
But they didn't block him in court because the commander-in-chief is not subject to an activist hippie Ben and Jerry's judge at some circuit court. That's just not how it works. And so, the Republicans just didn't want to fight. But as soon as Trump was out of office, they went down there. Lindsey Graham threw on a golf shirt, and then they did a photo op at the border.
Right. Yeah. But they tried to slow him down using the courts, using both parties, obviously, and the never Trumpers, people that didn't want him to employ his agenda. But look, they slowed him down just enough that it held up him. He probably could have had the wall done even before Biden took office. We lost precious time. And we're seeing the ramifications of that now. But, Biden was talking about tearing down the wall as soon as he came into office. I don't know if he's singing a different tune now, but I doubt it, knowing what he wants to do and the evilness on his plans. Critical race theory. What are your thoughts about where that's heading? Seems to be everywhere now, whether it's our military or schools. What are your thoughts, Patrick?
I think that what you're seeing right now is an unprecedented assault on white people. And until we actually talk about this, and it's one thing to say, well, I'm colorblind, I'm race neutral, and that's fine. I mean, we are. But when the issue is race every single day, when the media talks about white people every single day, then you're not being honest or effective if you're not going to engage with the issue directly. The fact of the matter is that white Christian men founded this country, have done some great things in this country. Now, if you want to talk about slavery, which was a historical sin, why don't you go over and talk to the European royal families? Why don't you go over and talk to the British royal family? Why don't you go over and talk to some of the descendants of the people who were bringing these people over on slave ships? Instead of talking to white people who, mostly had absolutely nothing to do with it. And of course, we know only a tiny fraction of people in the South actually had any slaves. Why don't you talk to, the Vanderbilts, who are Southern aristocracy? Anderson Cooper is still on CNN. Why don't you talk to Roy Cooper, the Democrat governor of North Carolina, who's descended from slave owners, or Kamala Harris, who's descended from slave owners? So we can have that conversation. The fact of the matter is, hundreds of years have passed. The fact of the matter is, if you look at the situation, and I'm not endorsing this, I'm simply making a point. Prior to the Civil Rights Act of 1964, Black people were doing very, very well. If you look at Black Wall Street, for instance, if you look at the history of Black colleges, of Black society, you begin to realize that the progressivization of things in the 1960s, which is being billed by the Democrats as, oh, we're evening the playing field, was actually taking financial power, taking ownership of businesses away from Black people.
Yeah.
And now all of us are basically owned by banks and multinational corporations. And so we're seeing people suffering now more than they've ever suffered before. So if we want to have a real conversation about race, we have to have that conversation. And we have to say that we want all races to do well. But absolutely, the white race has a right to survive.
Yeah. And when they took away the gold standard, you see what that got us, number one. Number two, the Democrats, they're the first ones that should be held responsible, considering it was their party that resisted civil rights legislation, number one, and also resisted all through the turn of the century there, the KKK, the lynching of blacks, the unemployment, et cetera, all the way up to people like Robert Byrd, who, by the way, were Biden and Hillary Clinton lovers, who big mentor of theirs, and that should tell you all you need to know. Finally, on big tech censorship, my friend Jason Fick has been involved in this issue, spearheading it in so many different ways with Facebook and his lawsuit with Facebook, and he's got all kinds of upcoming leverage that he's going to be able to use in the courts on this. I wanted to get your take on that, and obviously you just felt the action on that with Jack. What do you have to say about it? Where we're heading with that? Because it's got to be dealt with.
Well, I think that Andrew Torba is doing an amazing job at Gab, and I have actually expressed to the Trump camp that, Gab is going to be around. Gab has a very loyal base. There are people who are going to be probably more loyal to Gab than Trump if he starts a social media platform, and we're not even sure that he will. I would encourage the president to get onto Gab. I think it's doing a great job. I think Andrew Torba is excited about Gab TV, which I want to get on. And, I think that he's doing an amazing job, and they can't shut him down because he has his own servers.
Good.
So all of these things have the problem of, well, Apple's going to ban you. You're going to get banned from the App Store. You're going to get banned from this. You're going to get banned from banking. And so Torba said, look, we have our own servers. We have our own operation. He is basically separating from the mainstream media. He has over 4 million users now. We'd like to see that go up, obviously. So the site is doing really well. It's fast. It's effective. The content is great. It's a free speech platform, so you can see all kinds of different platforms. If you get offended by it, cry more, Snowflake. Okay?
Right.
And
by the way, when you talk to him next time, let him know that we'd like to come on. We'd like to come on the platform as well with the show. That's where we want to be, where we can have free speech. Patrick, thanks for joining us today, brother.
Thank you, John.
Well, it was great to see you in Dallas, by the way, and be able to hang out, spend some time. I'm glad we were able to have a steak together at the Hard 8. Amazing place, right?
Yeah, it's great. Highly recommend.
I highly recommend it, too, to everybody. If you haven't been down to Dallas, try the Hard 8 barbecue. You may not think they do steak because it says barbecue, but trust me, they do a heck of a steak. God bless you, Patrick.
We did better in Dallas than Kennedy did, so that's all I was.
That's right. That's right. And we'll have you back soon, brother. God bless you.
Thank you, John.
That was Patrick Howley. Want to get his take on these issues. Look, it's there's a lot going on in the news, and we're going to be breaking it to you as we get it. We've got a lot of different investigations that we're still working on that have not come to their end, and they're not going to for a while, just because we keep getting more and more facts, more and more evidence, more and more information. One more time before we go, though, I do want to share again the event. We're going to be coming to Sacramento. This is our first stop, July 1st. And then we'll be coming to Phoenix, July 15th. Glendale, California, July 17th. San Diego, July 19th. And July 20th, Las Vegas. We'll be releasing the flyers for those. General Flynn will be joining us for that second wave, which starts in Phoenix and ends in Las Vegas. So we'll be adding him to this flyer for our next city. And we're working on those now so that we can get those to you. Been an incredible day. A lot of news with Governor Huckabee, with Colonel Shaffer, with Patrick Howley. I want to thank all three of my guests for coming on today. It's been a wonderful show. And I want to thank you. God bless you, America. We love you, and we will see you next time very soon, next week.
Yeah.